Hey everyone, my name is Eston Juguna. This is ISA 4220. I'm presenting my research on Microsoft Server 2012 R2 standard 64-bit processor and also on Ubuntu Server version 16.04.1 LTS. Welcome. Microsoft Server 2012 belongs to the Microsoft operating system family that supports enterprise level management, data storage, and applications. One of the greatest feature in this operating system is Server Core, which is a feature that enables servers to operate at minimum service levels by these, utilizing memory and disk usage. And the user interface also has a metro-based feature that allows the server to handle tasks of numerous ordinary servers. So there is a feature that allows corporate entities or organizations to efficiently utilize resources by having a server that does multiple tasks. Windows Server 2012 supports NTFS, that's the new technology file system, although there has been upgrade to the resilient file system, which is a more upgraded version of the Windows file system. And also the NTFS, which is the new technology file system, has the check disk command, which is a very important tool in repairing Windows formatted hard drives. Also, the resilient file system supports both user interface and command line functionalities when formatting hard drives. One of the key uses of the servers in a network is to manage resources or rather coordinate activities from all other nodes, and this is done basically through communication. We have several protocols that enable nodes to communicate on the network. One important protocol is the IP protocol. That is a language that servers and clients use to communicate on a network. IP is a way of allocating addresses, unique identifying addresses that are assigned to each node in order to facilitate communication among the nodes. The entire protocol suite is referred to as TCP/IP and facilitates communication by specifying how data should be packetized, addressed, transmitted, routed, and received. IPv4 or Internet Protocol version 4 is a connectionless protocol that is used to packet switch networks and is limited as far as relaying data is concerned. This is a major drawback because actually it has a 32-bit address that limits space, leading to address exhaustion. IP version 6 is a more designed protocol that replaces the exhaustion problem in Internet Protocol version 4, that's IPv4. IPv6 or Internet Protocol version 6 uses a 128-bit address that has the capability of yielding 4.3 billion addresses in total. The Dynamic Host Control Protocol, so normally referred to as the DHCP protocol, is a server that has a repository with a range of IP addresses, and what it does, it assigns each node that joins the network a unique identifying address. The DHCP supports IP versions 4 and IP version 6 protocols. This feature is unique in the sense that it relieves administrators the burden of configuring IP addresses manually on each and every node. A DNS, or what's known as the domain name server, is a directory of domain names that translates them to IP addresses. For example, a user who accesses a URL has to go through a service provider first, who views the DNS associated with the domain name, and then translates these into a machine-friendly IP address, and then redirects the user's connection to the correct website that the user is trying to access. And also, Windows 2012 supports Active Directory, and this is a very unique feature that authenticates and authorizes all users on a domain, and also assigns and enforces security policies. So what are the best practices for Windows Server 2012? Are we going to go through a few of them? One of them is to ensure specified standards are attained for hardware and supporting drivers. It is also important to document server configurations and schedule data backups. And by this, documentation is an important process of IT, not only in the functionality aspect, but also in the security aspect. Also, one of the best practices is to assess the server and manage local server to analyze all installations. And it's also important to adopt a consistent naming convention on servers and client machines. Going on with best practices, also renaming administrative accounts after installation and assign a strong password that meets best practice. Ensuring disks are encrypted, e.g. using BitLocker for information at rest. Also ensuring that ports that are not used are disabled. And also adopting trusted SSL certificates that are assigned to file servers and tied to port 443. So what are the approaches to implementing best practices in Windows Server 2012? An important aspect of this would be actually scheduling system updates to run in order to maintain functionality and secure the system. Also configure group accounts to enforce policies that ensure user accountability. And also use the principle of least privilege that allows users limited access to only what they need to execute their job functions. Actually, this is an aspect of security. Next, we're going to look at the Windows firewalls. Windows operating systems have inbuilt firewall functions by default that are turned on. And we also have advanced security Windows firewall that perform packet filtering functions and also enable remote administration. Windows firewalls also have the capability of checking logs and recording IP addresses and other data from networks by monitoring dropping packets and successful connections. So what are the Windows firewall best practices? Some of them are actually place rules based on user sets, lower in the rule order. Recommend use of IP addresses rather than DNS names in firewall policy. Secure remote management by restricting membership. And create an access rule for Windows update servers. So how do we implement best practice on Windows Firewall? We have some of the ways to do this. For example, configuring IP addresses other than DNS names to reduce reliance to threat management, gateway on the DNS server. And for example, if IP addresses are dynamically assigned, what we can do is configure using both IP and fully qualified domain name. Another thing was to place authenticating rules near bottom list so that only traffic that does not match the rule encounters authenticating rules. Avoiding duplicating or overlapping protocol definitions for example, rules that deny traffic on a specific protocol, and then, for instance, the same traffic gets allowed based on a different protocol that is differently defined, should be avoided. Also, denying access rules on all protocols with source port restrictions. Next, we're going to look at the Linux Ubuntu server version 16.04.01 LTS operating system. The server runs on Ubuntu operating system, which is a Linux-based platform, and also the Linux operating system is open source. That means also allows for custom changes to suit different business applications. A shell is an integral part of the operating system that runs commands, and then a bash is a default shell for most Linux distributions. Then we have a kernel, which is the very core of the Linux operating system. What it does, it manages all processes, device drivers, and input-output functions. Then we have a bootloader, which starts the kernel by loading the image into memory and hence control of the CPU to the new image. Some of the Linux commands we have, for example, we have ls, a command that lists the contents of a directory. We also have cp, a command that copies the contents of a file to another. We have the mv, which is a command that renames a file to another file and also moves all files to the dir directory. We also have the popular echo command that prints arguments to standard output. So what are some of the Ubuntu server best practices? It is recommended to keep the system updated by enabling automatic updates. It is also recommended to disable unnecessary services. It is also recommended to fix shell-shock bash vulnerabilities, and it is also recommended to secure shared memory. Some of the ways to implement best practice in Ubuntu OS are to ensure removing unnecessary services, usernames and logins from the system, disabling all unnecessary ports during the configuration process, securing temporary directories such as /tmp, /var, /dev that usually open doors to attackers, and also setting security limits to disable unwanted services. Next, we're going to look at Linux Ubuntu operating system firewalls, and here we're going to talk about IP tables, which actually operate at layer 3 of the OSI model. Actually, this is the first line of defense for Linux server security. IP tables filter packets in the network stack with kernel itself. They also list contents of packet filter rule sets, and they also inspect only packet headers. Another thing is they allow for add, remove, modify functionality rules in the packet filter rule sets. So the main default firewall tools for Ubuntu servers are uncomplicated firewalls that actually basically designed to reduce complexity of IP tables and make them user-friendly. Uncomplicated firewall supports IP version 6, extended logging options with on and off facilities that can be integrated with applications, and they also have add, remove, modifying functionality options according to specific needs. So what are some of the best practices for IP tables? Some of the best practices for IP tables are matching packets with chain rules, top on the list going down, and then we avoid setting default policies to drop, that's dropping traffic. Also, unless very necessary, you should avoid flashing IP table rules, and also split complicated rule groups into separate chains. So some of the ways of implementing best practices for IP tables are, actually it is recommended to configure drop each inject roles at the bottom of the chain that merge everything instead of setting default policies to the drop rule. Also, always check each chain's default policy, and if the input chain is set to the drop rule, then changing it to accept rule in order to gain access to the server after rules are flashed. Also ensure to set up rules in a way that does not jeopardize the local host interface. That's it for my presentation, and I do appreciate your time. Thank you.